Today is already June 21st, 2021, of course. This is a video dedicated, I don't even know to whom I will dedicate this video. Why don't you dedicate, guys, this to whatever you think this should be dedicated to, because I don't know anymore what to tell you other than to give you the report about it concerns my father and his involvement in MK Ultra through the police. It was once in year 2002 that police 2001 that police have used my father to get him inside of the hospital and see how I'm gonna react to his emergency. And they were, I don't know what emergency was. With the, whatever you want to say, to use him enough, to use him to literally become a patient at will. In other words, he would volunteer himself for whatever police would need one in respect to hospitals. This was a 2001, the first time the father went, subjected himself voluntarily to whatever hospital practice they did. He was inside of the hospital, General Hospital of Novo Mesto, and then they started to evaluate me, how I'm gonna react to his stay there. And it's this kind of abuse that systematically, gradually grew into something completely different. My father, I don't think he anticipated. Stroke related issues. This guy you gotta make him stroke. You gotta use a pill, you gotta do something for him to get a stroke. Definitely that's what was done. Father complained to me about his eye. They have done something to him. In fact, there is even a physician in Ljubljana who knows everything about this, that it was the Slovenian government who did. And meanwhile, it was rated as a patient with dementia. That much for that kind of volunteering yourself, because you don't know nothing in between what can happen. But with the government, Slovenian government is like this, that everything in between you have signed for, giving the verbal approval, let's say. Actually, you don't have to give a fucking approval or anything like this. They tell you what is it gonna be, and then they force you down the throat, whether you like it or not. That exactly was not in case with me, but also with my father. Recently, he found himself in a hospital suffering stroke-related issues, for which I was told the case is going to be under MK Ultra. They have totally rehearsed his stroke-related issues. Hospitalized one now over a month and a half ago, more, for the first time. And he had a real problem. His problem just continued to grew. He completely had lost control over his physical whereabouts. very, very aventuristic, I have to admit. Few people have a courage like this, but my father did have a courage like this. They got him into a situation like this before, and it was okay. Several times they got him like this. Similar situations. They repeated, they rehearsed this stuff. I think they use some kind of pills to copy almost a real stroke. Just that this time the situation was dire because about over a week now ago I had to request even for father to get infusion, to get intravenous water in his body. He was totally dehydrated. His heart was having like heartbeat like almost like a mouse. He was located in this home for let's say recuperation, but it's where you dom za njega, no? Rehabilitation, sort of, facility from the hospital, the oldest one from the Franciski. That's the address. I already have demonstrated all that stuff. So that was apart from this neurological department in General Hospital Novo Mesto, where it became his permanent station, basically. They transferred him over there, and because it appeared to me that he was about to die, and I requested immediately for him to be at least connected to machine. If he refused to drink, refused to eat, and so on, still has a problem with eating and stuff, because God knows what they're doing inside of the hospital. Where I was, the atmosphere was not exactly the atmosphere I would rate as a normal atmosphere, for a few reasons, which one appeared to me from the same sister, nurse, repeatedly intruded in his personal space without any concern, to, how can I say, when you approach to a human being, you have to have a human approach. You can't just go and just, let's say, just go and you just stick somebody in the air with temperature reader, thermometer, digital thermometer, or something like this. Especially this person is all disturbed, like my father. My father caused, I understand, problems, and frankly, it breaks down to a mental issues. He's 91-year-old, and you got to use common sense as a professional healthcare individual when you deal with a person like this. You just can't go and, you gotta have a certain approach, basically. Now, if he's doing the problems and stuff, then you have to follow the protocols and so on, okay? But in the case of father, and I'm gonna be really, really short about this stuff, the situation is such that I was told under MK Ultra by the medical staff that in the building, in a nursing building, in the building for rehabilitation, for the Franceskieva, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for my father. This is going to be like the hardest part for my father. That's what they stated to me. What exactly I mean by this, was that my father would have to go through this procedure, like it or not, and if I would not bail one out of there. I did not bail one out of there, but I did pay attention to what his situation was. Apparently, he also got coronavirus. As this is so, that's right there what you see, that's a General Hospital Novo Mesto, right? That's where he's at right now. But till a week ago, he was in this this beautiful building here. That's where they would give you, like, for you to recuperate, like, instead of going into a home for elderly people because you need care, they would transfer you here, but you can only be here for about a month and that's it. And in his case, because the health deteriorated so badly that, and they didn't even have an answer to me that day. They insisted me, oh, it's gonna be the next day that he's gonna get this infusion and this and that. They're gonna take blood from him the next day. It appeared to me like he's gonna die that day. And so I requested, I wanted to know how much water did he consume, what exactly is going on, because you can't be without the water. He was totally dehydrated. He got that same afternoon, finally, water. So they hydrated him, and the medical staff told me this is going to be the worst part for him, this building here. If he's going to survive this building, they had a plan to transfer him back in there into this General Hospital Novo Mesto. If he would survive that building, his survivability would increase enormously, tremendously. Well, you know what this is? This actually is a Supreme Court. It's called the Vrhovno Sodišče Republike Slovenije. The people from this building, from this, well, you want to call them a judges, a Supreme Court judges, Slovenian Supreme Court judges, you call them whatever you want, were involved in this case. Now let me be a little bit more specific. I realized that the only way for my father, because I had him home, and he started to act foolish, eat improper food, just would not follow my instructions. He would just go and whatever the mother would deliver garbage, he would go and jump for that. He found his way back to the hospital. So I figured out on my own, really, there is no necessary, this is your father, to request for father, just like the mother did, demonstrated me. It was the mother first that demonstrated me the paper, the form, how she got him to sign her a form. Without, this guy signed her a form without even knowing what the fuck he signed. And so, because my mother doesn't want him here, but I do, because this is my father, I figure out I would go and do what every normal person would do, basically get him rather into the home for elderly, where he would be basically hooked up to machines. Thanks God he's hooked up to machines now, 24/7. What I would do is I'd rather get him home and basically give him sense to be alive. You got to give a person even a reason to be alive. My father was heavily subjected to MK Ultra torture. The government used him to their full potential. Like I said, about a week ago he was on the brink of death. If I would request that afternoon for him to get infusion, it would be the end of it. His heart was just doing like this, basically. You could see not a good stuff. if you go to home for elderly people, and a situation progressively or systematically with whatever program they introduce, time-wise, is indifferent from the one in the hospital, and he is there already for 2 months now. That's we can say that's a sentence to death, right? So if he would get home, eat proper food, get exercise and stuff like this, chances are that maybe he would get to live another 10, 15 years, who knows, go for fishing, whatever. It just, this is his home. What can I say? This is his home, and I don't think anybody has the right to throw him inside of the home for elderly, push him away from here, and this and that. This is just not right. So, this procedure, however, this is from the court here, regional court in Novo Mesto, Krajno sodišče Novo Mesto je Rebova ulica 2. These are actually instructions on how to become a carer for a person that is not in a capacity, it is not capable to take care of itself. Alright, so what do you have? Depends on your medical condition. There is a certain, as you see, paragraphs here that are listed. That person who wants to provide care for you have to fulfill and present this to the court based on entry fee and that kind of stuff. And of course then this person can be considered with a patient with whomever he requested, she requested, for this type of whatever you want to call this, I don't know, home care. Becoming a provider basically for the person, for disabled person. Help one to rehabilitate himself or herself, maybe, I said maybe, even into a normal condition. That's why I went into this, not so that I would have a father here all the time lying down. Also the possibility exists, because stroke, dementia, and that kind of stuff, that can be really defined, you know. But I think in his case, I would say 90% at least has got to do with the environment, with the circumstances. So I decided to go about it and do my best for him. Now, the one who also knew about this stuff, I already have introduced you to. That was the one right at the top of this state. The Supreme Court, if you want to call this in Slovenia, whatever you want to call this, they knew about this stuff. Next to police, next to psychiatrists, whom police have used, because it's already so criminal that not even psychiatrists, at least psychiatrist here, Peter Kapsch, he had certain problems with this stuff. At least that's how he presented himself. Then he just had to go and basically fulfill whatever requests police presented one with. Of course, I'm talking here about Mr. Ogulin and Mr. Ulaj. That's director here of the Novo Mesto Police and the Slovenian Police in Ljubljana. Specifically, I'm talking about Department for Criminal Investigations. This is, for me, who was rated in 2013, labeled as a paranoid schizophrenic. eventually, like a Russian roulette, I was told it's gonna be under MK Ultra by my mother alone, but also by the police and so on, which even anticipated would get me inside of the police department to file the complaint against the hospital. But without absolutely any doubt, this is totally job of the police, which is completely handled by the police, this stuff. What it means to file to be a carer for another person due to his medical condition, once you're labeled with a mental illness, I do not know, because I never went to any kind of issue like this. All I know is that this country, this nation, never ever issued apology for crime against me, for ruining me no less than 28 years, destroying my health and everything. That's all the fuck I know. I know that, as educated as I am, this country continued to block me from employment market and make me probably unemployable to about probably 50% of market itself. They, with this kind of criminal conduct, label me as mentally ill and even as violent, domestically violent at home. They completely destroyed me, totally blocked me from government sector jobs like a police, security, and basically, very likely even this kind of stuff. If I would want to go to provide for somebody assistance, I don't know how much I would be capable based on the record police have created. It's difficult to explain what my views are on this country. I would rather keep quiet about this. I'm just gonna say that during MK Ultra, they have used impersonators, and these impersonators, they're like impersonating other politicians from abroad, who began to instigate that they would nuke this little country. And I can tell you that I expressed incredible interest in it, even after they told me that unfortunately and this and that we wouldn't be able to save you. I still was so fucking interested that you have no idea. That is the relationship this country built with me. It's a tricky one, it's a difficult one, I know, but eventually the truth about the crime of Slovenia came out, and now there's this more filthier, crazier shit that is about to come more about Slovenia. Yes, I'm sure that you heard of, and that's a Scandinavian store with furnished with the tables. It's something like IKEA, but it's just smaller. I was in negotiations for the job there, but the thing is that these people couldn't handle the pressure from the police. They couldn't handle it. In 2014, it was when this girl with the black hair, with the glasses, left. She was in human resource department. She is somewhere in direction of Trebnje, something like this. I don't know. Something like this. Left because situation involved, as I stated, my father, myself looking for the job, meaning regional employers blocking me from employment. Well, what they did to me is impossible to explain. But when it becomes evident that they are willing to offer you employment, the employers that participated in MK Ultra and participated exactly with issue involving health, future, health of my father, basically, which would condition him life. Basically, on one side you have a chance to go for the job, and the other one, that's basically to go and take care of your father. If you go take care of your father, you have the right to some kind of financial pay, because yeah, you have to take care him yourself. I was told the state would even, yeah, told the state, yeah, this is what they brainwashed me actually also to do, to apply to become, you want to call this home aid care. This is actually really care for my father. The thing is that you have to get into this stuff to recall all the events. And so you have to make a choice, basically. Slovenian police insisted me. Either you're going to take care of your father, or you're going to go for the job. If you're going to look for the job, if you're going to continue to apply for the jobs, go on interviews and stuff like this, you can avoid the issue. With the father, we'll just get rid of him. This is precisely how the Slovenian police brainwashed me. They're going to be viewing me as. That's a big trouble. I mentioned to you earlier, Supreme Court. Well, Supreme Court is not higher than the police, because it's the police that can make disappear any Supreme Justice at any fucking day. When you have the police doing this kind of stuff, you don't have the police. You have organized crime. You have an organized gang, basically, that's acting, that's doing stuff like wild, basically, the way they want. Totally wild. And so nobody really is safe in a country, in a state like this. Not even Supreme Court justices. Maybe the least, who the fuck knows. But these Supreme Justices, these Supreme Court justices, who insisted me that once I would get to the court with this kind of stuff and present proofs about how it all started with the COVID issues, with the COVID entrance exams, passes, whatever you want. Which was no, in a city, they wouldn't provide, covered by the health care, what they advertised, basically at a local Novomesto city government website, if you want. It was all unorganized and full of conflicts, which also involved the issues of a hospital not giving clear instructions and then meeting people who would perform these COVID tests, but would claim even that I would have to pay them out of my own pocket and that I had the right to, and like a lot of psychiatric stuff to cause as much stress and crazy shit as possible. You know, that kind of stuff. Then after some time, they have removed these requirements for each visit to my father to go test myself for COVID, and they started with different kind of requirements, with some even involved, next to spending 15 minutes per day, one person only. It's kind of a difficult because you have to shave the father, you have to take care of him, clean him up, and that takes definitely more than 15 minutes, that kind of stuff. Total nuisance nonsense, but yet designed in such a way that would cause exactly the stuff they brainwash me the case is going to be under MK Ultra. So it's like totally adjusted. I fell into the brackets. I do journalism, I do the stuff that's very sensitive for this little country that is using a Russian flag as a national disgrace, basically. They don't really approve me, and I don't fucking approve them. I never did, and never ever will. So it's not kind of a romantic relationship. What I'm trying to say, I'm just trying to justify you why this kind of stuff is happening. Not for me to say that this is your problem or whatever. But they started with new requirements, which you would have to report yourself prior to visitation to a physician, which would then give approval, and there will be written your name at the receptionist, and then receptionist would check your name, and then they would let you go upstairs and this and that. Like I said, one person per day, 15 minutes, that's it. Difficult, really, when you have somebody under this kind of condition, medical conditions. It's kind of a difficult. Then it was all kinds of lies, conflicting statements between physicians and my mother, and of course a lot of mistreatment over the phone. Even whenever I tried to reach them, call them, communicate, announce myself even for the visit, and I was just turned down and so on. No, I would not go and complain about this. A physician for whom I suggested, she's from Belgrade. She's actually, I think, Ukrainian. I hope she is, because they involve so many different scenarios. She arrived to Slovenia a while ago, at least 10 years ago. Got married here, supposedly. But the thing about it is that, you see, the thing about it is that she was the one who warned me about that they're gonna try to fuck me, screw me, and that I have to record her, audio record her, and put this on the internet. That's gonna help you out. Because guess what? Father is a neurology department. There's, you could say, 25% at least, 30% probably, it fits into a field of psychiatry. Remember, and that's a hospital I actually had to go at one point in my life to report myself to psychiatrists who are involved in MK Ultra. This is completely out of fucking touch with the reality hospital. This is as fucking ill as it gets hospital. It's a fucking illness. This is like a nest of mental illness, this hospital. Now, I will not forget when I was with a police officer, next to police officer, at the entry to this department, to this neurology department. We were sitting there, and there were people walking back and forth. I was not the only one. They were doing MK Ultra on at this very department on the third floor, the department for neurology. This is fucking wild west. Americans told me it's the same inside of the homes for elderly people and even some public institutions, whatever. So the world is going to hell, maybe, but maybe those are no Americans, maybe because they did use silicone masks and shit. You know, I wouldn't go for that. Just giving out into something, giving in into for whatever, and it doesn't matter really. Even if that stuff is happening in the U.S., I'm not down with this kind of stuff. And so that means that I would have to go, who was labeled as a paranoid schizophrenic in 2013, to the court to battle, to justice. Whom? No. You see, the Supreme Court Justice, that was a lady, also with a black hair, told me that I'm gonna win some way, somehow, that this is how they're gonna make me recognized. But in between, it's not that I would be afraid of it or anything like this. It doesn't work like this. It's just that I feel that Slovenia does not deserve this kind of privilege. I told clearly, loud and clear, I told in 2012, fucking explain yourself on the internet. I was very clear, 2011, 2012. I talked about MK Ultra and told you all. Tell the fucking world what you did. Confess yourself about the crime, and that's all there is to it. It took them 10 more years for more problems to pile atop one another. Now you want to go solve the issues like this through some kind of a Supreme Court. I have to tell you, I do not recognize one, because I don't recognize Slovenia as a country, as a sovereign state. I don't recognize Slovenian nation as a nation. There you have it. I don't. You don't give me any kind of favors. You ruined my life to make myself clear. You do whatever the fuck your job specifications require from you, and that's all the fuck you do. And I'll do mine, which is none of your business. You ruined my father's health too. You destroyed his health next to my life. And it was a mother who had to comply with this bullshit, like it or not. So you totally destroyed, ruined this family, claiming that something was wrong with me, equaling me even with a Satan and stuff like that. You know, they brought me to Croatia and stuff like this and called me Satan and stuff. In 1995, however, it did not even start with a serial killer, Metod Trobec, to whom they would bring me inside of the jail in Slovenia for world to see me in famous Slovenian serial killer Metod Trobec. It actually started with a murderer known as Vald Jurecic in 1995. He was a teacher. You see, from Vald Jurecic, whom they have introduced in MK Ultra, he was just a guy that murdered the last, I think, Baroness, not too far from here, threw her inside a Volkswagen buggy and drove her around for some time in the trunk. He was a professor, don't get me wrong, and brilliant too. He just wanted the castle to himself. That's how Mr. Milan Kučan, Borut Pahor, you know, all these ex-Yugoslav communists, leftists, the so-called leftists, that's exactly how they wanted the world to see me as. That's how they wanted to, they had opportunity to come across this American people I brought here. Kings from all over the Europe I gathered, so they would invest in this shithole known as Slovenia, and that's what the fuck I got in return. And so, for you to give me any kind of favors, this is just bizarre, crazy bullshit. Even for the cost of the life of my father, and even for the cost of my life. If we go back to what I stated earlier, when you impersonated people, don't ever forget that shit. You owe me, I don't fucking owe you anything other than a slap, a kick in your fucking ass. So hard kick that you're gonna cry for as long as you fucking exist. That's all the fuck you, I owe you. That's all there is. That's a relationship between you, Slovenia, Slovenian nation, and myself, to make myself completely clear about it. Supreme Justices from Slovenian Supreme Court, that they're going to be saving me through the issue they created, literally getting my father inside of on a deathbed, literally imitating. It's not imitating, it's actually imitating stroke issues. Dehydrated one over there. Use one like a remote control tool to do with him whatever the fuck they want. Involving in crime, neurology department. By the way, proxual cops, they used to come here regularly to this department. Psychiatrists, neurology, psychiatry. That's how I learned all about this neurology department here in the city of Almaty. I never cared about any of this kind of stuff and so on. But these people really made me expert in understanding all these matters. Yeah, so today I did submit it as required by the court here in Novo Mesto. A condition of my father, which is necessary, exact description of his medical condition, and also for the documentation, therefore whatever medications he's getting and that kind of stuff, what is necessary and so on. And so that's going to be used supposedly, as my mother told me, don't even think about. My father told me, don't even think about. My own father told me, go for the job. You gotta get the job. There's nothing you can do without the job. I completely agree with it, but there is some stuff that I completely disagree with it. Involving this kind of issues, and police basically who would act like not even a court. It would be actually the police that would cut the cake, basically. I don't know how that expression is. And some kind of Supreme Court Justice that already threw me, the female, in advance already, how that's all she could do for me, and if I'm gonna be still politically active, and then that's up to me, and they will be not be capable to do anything for me, and so on. So this is like, fixed trial, that kind of stuff. Except that my father is in a totally impossible situation. He refuses to eat, even accept food, intraveno. He's you really put him on a deathbed. And myself, a mister in between job, court without any kind of money, and a total fuck up, so-called Slovenia state, whatever you want to call this. This is just an update here. Today is, as I stated, it's 2 hours after, roughly after midnight. It's June the 21st, 2022. I am sorry I did use certain profanities, but there's so many issues involving this stuff that what I did right now, this is like 45 minutes. It's like this when compared to reality. Everything I have stated is true, and I do have audio recordings to prove that stuff. There is nothing else I have to say about this stuff. This is gonna go, of course, Okrožno sodišče, that's a regional court here to Novo Mesto. This will go straight to the court. That's when we are gonna meet probably with all these people, psychiatric hospital, Ljubljana Polje, all that stuff. And this is basically how the police wants to be the one in charge, basically. Like they're the one, they're gonna cut the cake and so on. And then this is gonna go, I suppose, to the Supreme Court or something like this. Yeah, make yourself a fucking problems. Make my day. It's gonna take more time and more fucking problems, but eventually I'm gonna fuck you up and destroy you as a country, as a nation. You bet. You are fucking with the wrong person. Eventually, I'm gonna get you for the balls and tear them apart. Eventually, you're gonna get on my track. Eventually, the day is gonna come. It's gonna be called a payday.